Hey folks, it's Lindsey Huddleston with SPS back in the building for another SPS Mental Health Moment. Sitting here with my guy, Mr. TJ Kelley. For those of you who know TJ, it looks like TJ. It really is. I've got voice authentication, and he gave me a password, so it is really TJ. He's always clean cut, but he's dealing with this COVID pandemic, and we're all shut down. How you doing today, man?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking. How's everything with you?
Very, very well, man. Thanks for being available. You know, part of what this was going to be about was me getting with coaches, players, but also sports influencers. And your Inside Prep Sports organization has been very influential and really helping young people transition to the next level. You are NCAA approved scouting service. You work closely with State Champs Network, the MC Round Ball. I'm going to start naming a lot of stuff. The Michigan Elite 25, the Winter Breakout, the Fast Break Invitational, the Great Lakes Classic, the 313 Classic, the Horatio Williams Foundation, and many of the events they're doing. And you also have your fall showcase, which premieres some of the top talent from around the state, and you do a good job. So if you were on an elevator and you met someone and you guys were going to the 30th floor, so you had a few moments, how would you introduce yourself and talk about what you do?
I watch basketball. Wow. You know, that's one of the toughest questions I have to add because I've been asked that question many times.
So you're not on an elevator, you're on a plane ride.
Yeah. Well, it's even that much longer, and I'm not sure that we'll probably exceed that 15 minutes on that plane ride. Saying that we're probably going further than from Detroit to Toledo.
Right.
But you know, I look at it just as a guy that's at the right place in the right time, and being able to use my network to benefit basketball players, the youth who have goals, and you know, if I can help, you know, bridge that gap, then you know, then I'm more than willing to help in any capacity that I'm available.
Right. For those who don't know TJ, he's always the consummate professional. You know, the times I've worked with you, always had a class event. No doubt. I mean, I'm keeping it real right now because I just know that when you put your events on, you come ready to go and you're all about it being right. Talk about the necessity of someone like you in the business. You're not a coach. You're not you're not doing other things. You're helping. What's the necessity for someone like you in the sport of basketball?
Let's say this. Like a middle relief pitcher, maybe, you know,
Okay.
where there are high school coaches and AAU coaches that can get it done. You know, let's say they're the starting pitchers. The college coaches who are recruiting these kids are the closers. You know, I think that there's a strong group of people that serve as a liaison, from high school player to high school coach to AAU coach to college coach. It's just the Rolodex of information that you have to have. It's hard for anybody to, you know, really get in. I mean, let's look at a college basketball staff. You've got, you know, 3 assistant coaches. You've got the head coach. You've got a director of basketball operations, and then video coordinator for some schools. Let's throw in a couple of other people. That's 8 people at tops that have to scour the country for, you know, their next recruit. I look at it like I'm a second set of eyes, or maybe the 17th and 18th set of eyes, 15th, and however that winds up working out.
Right.
But let's say, for example, last weekend, huge tournament that's been going on for 25 years plus, probably. The Bill Hensley Memorial Classic down in Fort Wayne at the Speets Fieldhouse. Division I coaches can't go to that event. You'll have Division IIs, Division III.
They're barred by the NCAA, for those who don't know, to go to those events.
Yes, and so for a person as myself, I can go to events without any real restrictions. I think that you set your own restrictions on how professional you want to be. I always look at it, you know, if I'm always a guy that's going to reach out to the high school coach, to the AAU coach, to an adult before, you know, just walking up to some kid or something like that. Hey, I'm TJ Kelley. That to me is the kid is the recipe and the player, in the ingredients and stuff like that. It's not they're not the finished product, finished product. So many more times I can go to talk to one of their high school coaches, their AAU coach, and get that much more background information on the kid. Whether it be grades. There's nothing more than I love than hearing, he's an outstanding kid and he's a 4.0 student. Talk about Pierre Brooks, who well, going to Michigan State. I knew that he had strong grades, but then in talking with his dad, there are other teammates that he has on his team as well, that Xavier McClendon, Peoples, who also have real strong grades as well. And so it's great for me to receive that information and then to give that information out to college coaches or the people in power that give that further opportunities, if I can say.
Yeah, I like that. I experienced something years ago. I was doing some work with USA Basketball, and they had like the top sophomores in the country. And, these are the best players in their state, and a collection of them looking at being on that select team. And something was very interesting. I talked to a mother. She made a good point. She said, this is the first time we've been here. I think people take for granted that when you have great players that they know the process. But in most cases, unless you're one of those rare families that's had several young people who've gone through the process and been highly recruited, you're there for the first time. So what do you say to a parent, mother, father, single dad, auntie, grandmother, who has a kid that's a great prospect, but they've got to this point now where they've outgrown their situation and they don't know what to do next? How do you kind of help them navigate the process?
I think that's a great point that you brought up about outgrowing the process. The process now, compared to 10 years ago, compared to 20 years ago, compared to 30 years ago. Let's look at it like now. Right now, you've got kids that are not varsity players who have highlight video. That was unheard of 10 years ago. Like, why are you wasting your time? That's great. You're building your own scrapbook. That's going to be great if you're going to be looking back. If you're a kid. When you're, let's say, on yourself as a kid, when you're 35, 40 years old and you get to watch your son or something like that. Hey, look, this is dad doing this video. If you go back 25 or 30 years ago, you had to be the man, It's been great to slip up on some great MHSA semifinals and finals games. I just watched 1994 Pershing versus Murray Wright. And, so you had Tractor Trailer versus Willie Mitchell.
Ooh.
And and then if you think about that, and then the crazy thing is you're watching and you're like, wow, I know this kid, I know this now dad, I know his son who is at the same age.
Yeah.
So the recruiting process is a lot different over the last 30, 40 years. I mean, look at 60 years ago, people are like, how did Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Lou Alcindor wind up, at UCLA? Had a guy like Wilt Chamberlain wind up in Kansas, I'm sure plenty of those reasons are no longer, let's say there will be violations in the NCAA now.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
So the recruiting game has changed. If I was a parent and the recruiting process was new to me, I would definitely, obviously, reach out, find out what high school you want to go to, do some research. There's nothing more that bothers me when I see a kid transfer after his freshman year and the parents didn't really do any research into what school I'm going to. I think one thing that we have to value as adults and bring into the youth is to bring consistency. Wow, if I know where I'm going to school, if I know I'm doing this and I know I'm doing that, then it makes that regiment that much easier, to grow up and to mature. Right. You're not always looking for yourself when you go from one school to another. And I'm not even just talking about high school. I'm talking about college. There's something to be said about growing up with the same peers. A lot of times those are built into lifetime relationships. Where now there's something they're standing up in your wedding. Those are your godparent, your kids' godparents, and a whole bunch of other things. And ultimately, when the dirt is thrown, hopefully, those friends, their grandkids and kids are there for the next move.
So you're saying
I
when you're
think,
not consistent, you miss the opportunity to drill down and get those relationships. If I could add one more thing to that point, make an extra point about consistency. When these guys transfers from these colleges, which I understand, transfer
yep.
portal, whatever, but you missed the opportunity to meet the associate AD who's going to probably be the AD or an influencer in that program. So when you finish up your collegiate or playing career and make your way back around, now you've built this network somewhere where there are job opportunities, referrals, and there's no place like a college campus to go and get them checked. So I just think that, to your point, when they don't build that habit of consistency, they miss out on being able to get those opportunities that you and I know as adults are there. You follow what I'm saying?
100%. And I think that's what, in getting back to what you're saying, I think that's so much more important for the Division I schools. If I have the opportunity to go to, let's just say Lawrence Tech, and I wind up meeting the president of the school, and I want to becoming an All-American and stuff like that, the opportunities that are going to come through meeting the athletic director, through being recognized from Lawrence Tech, I probably will never have to worry about a job when the ball stops bouncing. And the ball stops bouncing for a lot of people before they're 30 years old. You think you're going to live for another 50? Yeah, you better make that $5 million or however much money you have in the bank stretch. And that's tough. You're talking about living on $10,000 a year.
Why do you think people miss that, TJ? Why do you think they look at it as NBA or bust, play overseas or bust, and I'm going to be able to come back, and when I come back, I'll figure it out when I get back, as opposed to, man, let me nurture these relationships, and if I want to be an entrepreneur like a TJ Kelley or Lindsey Huddleston, it's still a plug. I still got the plug with the university. Like, why do you think they look past that? Is that just immaturity of youth?
I think that if as an adult, as a soon to be 45-year-old male, if I can't reflect back to 30 years old or 30 years ago, if I can't reflect back to 1990 or 1995 and say a lot of the things, I wish I would have gone and done this, I wish I would have done, how can I make things better? How can I learn to improve off of these things? Maybe I should listen to some adults who are giving me some of this advice, and I was just like, no, I got it. And I think we were all there as high school, as teenagers, as young men growing up. Don't worry, I've got it. It's almost like, yeah, I could go drive a car, and then you get in a car accident and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot, I should have put my blinker on.
Right.
Right. A lot of things that we took for granted as adolescents, as teenagers, as young men, and some people pick up on it, and they're like, hey, I'm going to run with this. And then you always look at that guy and you're just like, man, that's a really mature 16-year-old kid,
Yeah.
or that's really mature 18-year-old kid. What it does is, if kids listen, I think it builds a more efficient lifestyle, and I'm saying, like, hey, if I've got a 5-year window to do this, and you can't stretch it out over 8 years, hey, I've got 5. So therefore you have to be precise. You have to listen to people's, the blueprint that they're giving you and follow that. And by going ahead and doing that, because those people have been there and they've done that, and they're usually, find somebody, there are always going to be people that might not have somebody's best interest at hand, but the vast majority of people, they're in it to see other people succeed.
Right. Even if it's contrary to what you want to hear. But my thing is, you don't got to, I believe you when you say the stove is hot. I don't got to touch it. And I think that just may have, but some people still want to, put their finger out there or put their hand out there and they get the result. Let's talk about, you said a few things. Everything you're saying is awesome. And I really hope that players, parents, and even coaches take advantage of it. You talk about self-interest. You're in a unique space, TJ, because you're not a coach. You're not about steering somebody to one particular program. Let's talk about you being in a position where you can have the tough conversation that a lot of people can't have because they'll assume, oh, you hating on me. You're just being objective. And as I was talking to someone recently, I was talking to Dale Beard. He had played with Magic Johnson, won the state championship in '77, played on all levels. And he says he breaks it down to numbers with kids, which is kind of like your role. He'll say, look, I'm not hating on you. There's just only so many roster spots available. There's only many scholarships. So talk about you being in a position where you're able to have a tough conversation with a kid or a brutally honest conversation with someone to just give them the straight facts.
Well, it is a numbers thing. You know, if I'm a, let's say this, I'm a 4-star recruit, and I'm a small forward, and there's a freshman on the team right now, and there's a junior, and when I get there, they're going to be seniors and sophomores. And then I'm going to what? I'm going to complain that I'm not getting playing time, you know, over 2 other guys. Yeah, I understand that people want the competition and they want this and that, but you have to be very realistic in going when you're going into a situation. And by the way, that kid's only that sophomore. There's a chance that you're playing behind that kid for 3 years. You know, I think that so many times players have to go to the, you know, to the right school, play for, you know, and I understand, hey, you play for the school that's on your chest. You know, you're not playing for the coach, you're playing for that university. Well, you know what? Sometimes heads butt, you know. Let's say this: if I went from being coached by Bobby Knight, you know, or let's say let's do something a little bit different. Let's say I went from being coached by Steve Fisher, University of Michigan. Well, Steve Fisher moves on or winds up getting fired or something like that. The incoming coach is Bobby Knight. You know, now all of a sudden I've got to adjust to what I want to do, you know, or what I've been accustomed to, or maybe how I was raised. I was raised, you know, to have respect for other people, and I'm looking over and I'm seeing that, you know, no matter how people want to point, you know, how Bobby Knight talks to people some people will say it's motivation, other people might say he's an a-hole.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
But it's not going to be the fit for everyone. So I would definitely do my research as far as, you know, finding whatever schools that people know that kids need to go to. And I think that, you know, at the end of the day, that would cut down on a lot of transfers. Just making sure what do I want to do after school? You know, if I want to go into business, you know, then you have to look at a school like Northwood University. You know, if I want to go into pharmacy, I have to look at a school like Wayne State. You know, there are certain things where you know, if I want to be a teacher, you know, administrator or something, I probably should start looking at some of the MAC schools. Right. You know, the Eastern Michigan, you know, Ball State, you know, University of Toledo. And that only makes sense if I want to be a businessman. Hey, wow, you know, I can go to University of Michigan. You know, wow, I met Mr. Ross. Now I'm really in the know. You know,
I think too many people, though, unlike taking that suggestion you're making, they're so caught up on my whole conversation has to be about me playing at the highest level that they downplay that part. And it's almost like I think so many young people feel that they're surrendering their dreams when they start talking about, okay, what am I going to do after basketball? Because no matter what, you know, you can only play that for so long, no matter what level you go to.
Right.
In the interest of time, because you and I can go, and I can see us having we probably going to have to do our quarterly check-ins, you know what I'm saying, just to get things going. But the reason why we're having this conversation on Zoom as opposed to face-to-face is because of the Covid-19. And I'm hoping and praying that, you know, your circle is doing okay. I'm fortunate that mine is. But talk about how COVID-19, one, may impact the recruiting process in the immediate future. And then as we wrap up, love to get some inspirational words from you that can go out to the sporting community and the community as a whole, just talking about how we're going to get through this COVID-19. And I think we better wrap up then.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, recruiting periods have been missed. The state playoffs have been missed. I think that, you know, there's so many times that
which is a huge time where they're looking for recruits. That's the big time when they come together.
Yeah, well, and then I also look at, you know, the month of March. You know, that playoffs is when that playoff stretch is when you see so many kids, you know, young men, especially seniors that have breakout, you know, runs, and that's when they're noticed a lot of the times. And it's like, wow, look at this kid, and all of a sudden he's in the state championship game, and you know he's scoring 15 or 20 points, and he winds up getting a scholarship. You know, I feel for those kids. You know, I feel for the class of 2021 who, you know, they more than likely won't have an AAU season. You know, let's look at it like this. Your state is in a shutdown, and they say, all right, we've got a certified AAU tournament. And let's say we're in Michigan or Michigan State, both public schools. Well, both schools are shut down. Are they going to allow their employees, their assistant coach, their head coach to go out on the road and see these players? You know, I think, you know, it's much more than a state saying, hey, we're open, you know. I just feel really bad for, you know, those kids, but I mean, it is what it is. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think that's so important that you have to be mentally strong through this. I had the opportunity to talk to a couple people that are veterans. You know you've been in the military.
Yeah.
You know, and there are certain stress tests that they put you through. You know, people think that 30 degrees is cold. 30 degrees is nothing compared to 0 degrees. You know, and that's some stuff. And that's some stuff that you guys have to go through, you know, in the military training to get you prepared for whatever might come along. I don't necessarily look at this as a distraction. The COVID-19, I look at more of a way for us to mature, to really do an in-depth look into what we are as an individual, how we can really reach out to help other people. You know, we're in times of need right now, and if you have the opportunity to help somebody and you're not, then I always feel that that's a problem. Right. You know, just because we all will be in need and stuff like that at different times, and you never know where it's going to come from.
That's right.
But yeah, in closing, you know, with basketball being shut down, or let's say this, without any cameras, you know, this is a great time for any student athlete to really go out there and put in work and shoot. They've got 2 months. There should be a lot of kids, 2-3 months, you know, where nobody has seen them, you know, and all of a sudden they should come back. And if they're fortunate enough to have a hoop in their yard, then they should be able to knock down a whole bunch of jumpers, you know.
What about the kid that catch that growth spurt too?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the best things about there. You know, I'm sending out a report very soon, you know, and I'm talking about the top 20 players, you know, who I thought would have had an impact, you know, this spring and summer, you know, players to really look for, you know, let's say Grand Blank's got the kid Nate Brown, you know, is the 2021 guard, Lavelle Broadneck's up at Saginaw, you know, guys like that, you know, who aren't necessarily on the radar of a lot of schools, you know, some know who they are, but, you know, in sending that out, you know, and I expect for those kids to, you know, to be able to perform when they're eventually able to be seen, you know. I think that the way that kids can discount themselves the most right now is by losing track of what, you know, what's important to them or what their goals are.
That's right.
It's hard to reach your goals when you're on social media all day and playing video games, you know. Hey, if you're able to play in that video game tournament and win millions of dollars or however that winds up happening, hey, then best of luck to you.
Right.
You know, but there'll probably only be about 2 or 3 people that are gonna walk away with 6 figures.
That's
you know?
right. That's right.
So the percentages are very, very low. You know, you probably got a better chance to hit the mega millions. You know?
Exactly. And
so,
TJ, how can people reach you? How can they follow you? How can they get in contact with you?
I think the best way to find me would be to follow me on Twitter at ScoopIPS. That's Scoop Inside Prep Sports. Is probably the best way. My email is parksandneed@hotmail.com. I'm pretty good at, you know, returning emails. You know, if somebody sends me a direct message or anything like that, you know, I'm pretty good about getting back in contact with them. And, you know, I'm always an open book.
You hit right back. I can attest to that. Well, listen, man, you've given us so much great information. I really feel that our viewers are going to benefit. And I think it's also good for those who are not familiar with you to become familiar. And wow, what a great resource you could be during this time. So with that, I want to thank you. I appreciate our friendship. I appreciate our relationship. Can't wait for the time, man. We can just be back out there, man, just soaking it up and just living it. I don't think people understand the culture because it's not so much about the game. It's the camaraderie. It's being around. It's being positive. It's breaking stuff down. It's the conversation we have when the lights are not on. You know what I'm saying? And that's been a great thing. So, but I'm glad we're able to still stay connected, even if it's through technology, and talk about helping young people.
Hey, well, I'll tell you what, I greatly appreciate your time, Lindsay, and thanks for having me and having me on SPS and giving me this platform, to help promote your brand as well, because you're doing a fantastic job. It's also great to see you working up in Lansing with Jack.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll let Jack know you said that. So with that, we got TJ Kelley. We'll talk to you guys soon, and I appreciate you guys for stopping by.